Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. Dublin have beaten Galway 22 points to 14. This is the match reaction and everything else that goes with it. We're going to be breaking down the game, discussing the game. Anyone who's tuning in, if you can hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. And anyone who's tuning in afterwards, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, that would be great. Yeah, that was sound. That was all right. That was fairly comfortable from a Dublin perspective. Probably went, I think, the way a lot of people expected it to be. Maybe I did think Galway would be closer to Dublin, and Galway still had some good performers. O'Corrine, very, very good player, isn't he? Very, very good player. Cillian O'Corrine, 8 points. Like he was very impressive for Galway. But yeah, it was just very handy for Dublin. It was comfortable, control the game. Never really looked like ever losing the game. Galway had a few moments here and there, but I thought Dublin largely played the game, even in autopilot at times. I don't think Dublin ever, pushed full throttle or anything like that throughout the majority of the match. It was just very composed, measured, and just another very, very well-rounded performance. Con O'Callaghan again, another super performance from him, 9 points. He's absolutely reinvigorated. Since that Kerry win, it seems to be sort of before that game, and since that game, he's completely kicked back into the Con that we all well and truly know. And he's playing footballer of the year stuff at the moment. I think he's been absolutely brilliant. Sean Bugler, very good. Kieran Kilkenny was outstanding as well. Dublin I suppose, just in possession, just very, very good. And I think the thing I like about Dublin is how much we were mixing up our game, not afraid to float a long ball in on top of Con O'Callaghan, not afraid to kick the ball inside, keep the ball for moments. Just feels like we're letting the opposition, we're keeping the opposition on their toes, basically, because they don't really know what we're going to do next. And the kick-out press as well, which I think has been fairly well documented at this stage, again, absolutely brilliant. I think we're one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country at doing that, in terms of the opposition kickouts. It's something that Dublin have obviously worked on, through the years under Dessie Farrell, probably not until the Mayo game last year where we got it absolutely spot on. And when we do press up on opposition players, opposition goalkeepers and everything else, we cause a huge amount of problems and the amount of turnovers we get. Shout out to the defense as well. Like Darren Newcombe had a good game. Killian McGuinness, very good, 2 points. Obviously he wasn't playing in defense, but just looking at the team, he was named there. Brian Howard, very good. Yeah, Dublin, it was just a very, very solid performance. Tom Lahiff, I think, deserves a lot of credit as well, 2 points. And I think the most impressive thing from a Dublin perspective is that even with some key players, obviously Paul Mannion coming on, Jack McCaffrey coming on, Colin Basquel coming on, but the depth of Dublin's squad is just very, very frightening. Very, very frightening. The amount of players that they can bring on. Like when you're bringing on Colin Basquel, Jack McCaffrey, Paul Mannion, like that should be illegal, really. Do you know what I mean? Like that's not fair for the opposition team. And yeah, I think it's looking very, very good for Dublin. I think this is, look, it's obviously the league and everything else. So but we know Dublin have what it takes to win the All-Ireland. So I think it's maybe a little bit different when Dublin are doing, when teams are doing very well in the league that we've saw win an All-Ireland. I think it's a little bit different. I think Dublin, I think this is the best we've seen of Dublin in a long, long time. And I think Dublin look even better than what they did last year. Especially at this stage last year. Now, it could go one or two ways. Maybe Dublin run out of form at the wrong time this time around. Maybe when it gets to the quarterfinals of the All-Ireland series, maybe that's when Dublin run out of energy a little bit. But even at that, you just couldn't see it because of the amount of players that are still to come back in. And Ross McGarry's established himself now on the side. Another good performance from him. He kicked the point. Killian O'Gara, I thought looked decent at times. Scully looks very good. Like overall, like from 1 to 15, you couldn't discredit any of the players. Like even Evan Comerford, who comes into goal, he's probably, like when it comes championship with Cluxton being back, Comerford is probably Dublin's third choice goalkeeper. And even at that, some of his kickouts were absolutely brilliant. I think you could argue he's a better better at kickouts than David O'Hanlon, but O'Hanlon's probably the better overall goalkeeper. But yeah, like some of his kickouts were absolutely brilliant as well. In terms of Galway, like, yeah, very, very flat at times. I think Dublin built up a lead, like a 4 or 5 point lead, quite early on, and it just felt like Galway were never going to come back into the game. As I was saying before, Cillian O'Queen, very, very good performance from him. He looks like a top class footballer, and I think Galway, when you get Walsh back, when you get Comer back, you have Cillian O'Queen, you have Rory Cunningham. I think Galway still have something to work with. And just looking at the league table, should be okay in terms of relegation at this stage. So not really too much of a worry. Obviously, it will depend on the Monaghan and the Roscommon Kerry game. Like if Monaghan and Roscommon were to win, it would drag Galway right into it, going into the final game. But overall, I just don't think they could keep up with Dublin. Dublin's intensity, pressure, and Dublin just kept going. To score 22 points in a league game is fairly impressive. And unfortunately, Galway, they aren't the highest scorers in the world. Like they do average around 13 to 14, 12 points a game, in and around that margin. So yeah, and it wasn't a case of missing opportunities. I think they just struggled to make things happen. And overall, I think Pádraic Joyce will maybe be a little bit disappointed with that, but I think at the same time, it's not the end of the world for Galway. We know the players that need to come back in there. Paul Conroy will obviously have to come back into the fold, of course, as well. So there's still some key players for Galway that they are missing. In fairness, John Maher obviously goes off as well, so that could be a bit of a blow. And yeah, I think overall, from a Galway perspective, you wouldn't be too disheartened by this. Obviously, you want to try and take a scalp off the Dubs. You want to beat the top teams. Maybe the only worry for Galway is that, it's hard to really know where they're at, to be honest, going into the championship. You certainly wouldn't have them as a contender, a major contender to win an All-Ireland as it stands. Whereas last year, I think a lot of people were believing they could possibly go and win it. So definitely a lot of work to do from a Galway perspective, but at the same time, I do think you have to give credit to Dublin, because Dublin were very, very good today, as they have been over the last couple of games. So there we go. Alan says here, I think Dublin will go on now to beat Tyrone and beat Derry again in the league final. Absolutely, yeah. I think Dublin at home in Croke Park against Tyrone, more than capable, and especially with the way Dublin have been playing, Tyrone look very inconsistent at the best of times. Yeah, I think Dublin should win that game. And then a league final against Derry, which, I suppose is an interesting one, because it would be a week before Derry played Donegal in the in the Ulster Championship, and 1 or 2 weeks before Dublin play possibly Meath. So, it's not the same, is it? And you might see Derry maybe keep lads in reserve, just like they did in the league game a couple of weeks ago. So yeah, I think Dublin are now the favourites to win the league. In my opinion, especially after they beat Derry, they obviously beat Kerry quite comfortably. They're now beating Galway quite comfortably. So yeah, I think Dublin are the favourites. Obviously with the league final being in Croke Park as well, that adds it does add an advantage and everything else. Not to open up those can of beans, but you know what I mean. So yeah, great result for Dublin. Man of the match, probably Sean Bugler. I think RTE gave it to him as well. So yeah, he was very good. 3 points. But not only that, he does so much, Sean Bugler. He's almost like the Noel Scully of a couple of years ago, where he's getting a couple of points, no doubt about that. But he's setting everything up around him. He's sort of like the anchor, in between, just in front of the midfield and behind, your full forwards, making things happen, tracking back, getting tackles, winning turnovers. He was absolutely everywhere today, so he was brilliant. But you couldn't fault so many top players for Dublin today. Like Con was brilliant. Kieran Kilkenny was very good. Tom Lahiff was very good. McGuinness was very good. I thought Comerford had a great game. And look on the other side, as I said, Cillian O'Queen, very great performance from him. Aside from that, maybe lacked scoring options. Rory Cunningham, 1 point, but just not really, nothing really else there, I think, for Galway. But yeah, I'd probably have to go with Sean Bugler as man of the match. Absolutely brilliant. And yeah, I think Dublin are the favourites now. I think they're the favourites for the league. You know, and I think, as I said before, the fact that Dublin go into the Leinster Championship and Derry go into the Ulster Championship, which are two separate championships in the sense of competition in terms of teams you'd be playing. You know, Dublin don't have to be a full tilt in Leinster. You know that way. Like, don't get me wrong, they'll have to have their heads screwed on going away to Meath, I'm sure, if it is Meath that they play. But generally speaking, you know, when you look at Leinster football right now, Dublin should cruise through that, even without their best players and even without playing their best stuff. Whereas if Derry want to retain an Ulster title, they have to go full tilt. So, you know, there might be a focus away from the league for Derry now. So, yeah, look, I think Dublin are the favourites. And look, I think it would be great to see Dublin win the league. But look, but it's not done. It is not done. Look, Kerry are still in the equation in terms of getting to the final. Some other teams maybe could still have a say. So, yeah, look, it's going to be interesting. It most certainly is going to be interesting. And yeah, anyone who tuned in, if you could hit the like button and subscribe, that would be great. Let me know your thoughts on this game, on Galway, on Dublin, and everything else. So, yeah, my name's Aaron, and we will speak to y'all soon.